Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. It is Monday, July 24th, 2023, and it is time for a brand new episode of Snaps. We're not live today, obviously. You probably already know that, but we've got a lot to talk about. I don't know exactly how the live schedule is going to break down this week, so we'll just have to see. You can follow us on Twitter, whatever, and keep up with it. Today on the show, though, we've got a bevy of topics. Go through some of these conference media days, as we now know who the media thinks is going to win each conference. Caleb Williams is out here talking about bringing USC to the playoffs, and we'll look at 6 different quarterback battles in the SEC. I also have the quarterback show on Netflix talking about slam ball, Barbenheimer, X.com. There's a lot to get to today. We'll see what all we get to. First off, Eric, congratulations. I believe you just won a charity golf tournament?
Yeah, I don't know if it's like you put a trophy on the mantle back here, but a little East-like action. And yeah, we won. We won the
Hell
first
yeah.
charity tournament I've ever won. So like these are small little things that I tell my wife are the reasons why I play so much golf is to finally get a W in something because it's been so damn long. But happy Monday to everyone. T-Bob, it sucks looking at a camera instead of your beautiful, luscious locks
I
like we were
know.
last week in Nashville.
I know.
It's just not the same, man. It's not the same. I need you to move to Atlanta so we can do some more live stuff because I am
It
not moving
is
to Baton Rouge. No
it
chance.
is
No
not
chance.
the
Zero
same,
chance.
but whatever. I don't want to become a little buckhead boy bitch like you.
Wow.
All right, look,
Wow.
let's
Wow.
dive in. So we left media days and we didn't exactly know what the media was predicting just yet. I think it came out Friday afternoon.
Hmm.
And despite all of our high-minded talk about LSU being the favorite in the West, Aaron, despite the fact that LSU had 6 players make first team all SEC compared to Alabama's 5, including the quarterback, left
Yeah.
tackle, and wide receiver, the media just couldn't bring themselves to do it. The shadow of the Crimson Emperor looms large. Alabama once again picked to win the SEC West by a score 165 to 117 for that of LSU. And look, obviously, Georgia picked to win the entire SEC. We all knew that was going to happen. But were you surprised to see the Tide on top once again?
I was actually. I thought people were going to grow some balls and not be scared of Nick Saban. I guarantee you, you were probably one of the ones, little scared bitches, going for Alabama instead of LSU
No,
to win that
no
that side of the
chance, dude.
SEC.
No
I just
chance.
don't get what gives anyone confidence besides, I guess, the fact that it's Nick Saban that Alabama is going to win the SEC West. And I guess there's two things. One, Alabama is Nick Saban. Nick Saban's the greatest coach of all time, so I get that narrative. The other part of it is LSU has to go to Tuscaloosa. Tennessee
Yeah.
has to go to Tuscaloosa. Like, I think if it was the other way around, if it was Alabama having to go to LSU and LSU's team they had this year, I think people would say we feel really good that LSU wins that football game. We all know it's tough to win on the road. We know that it is extremely tough to win in Tuscaloosa while Nick Saban is the head coach. The record is incredible. They don't lose in Tuscaloosa. So I think that's really the reason why. But when you want to, if you just want to say, hey, this roster versus this roster, neutral site, I think most people would have said, and most media members would have said last week, LSU is the better football team. I think more than anything, it's just the fact that LSU has to go on the road to Tuscaloosa that I think has everyone kind of, uh, uncertain about that side of the conference. But I'm not. You have Brian Kelly, who to me is a top 5 coach in America. You have a quarterback who is as you alluded to, an all SEC preseason guy that may end up
First
being
team.
in New York when it's all said and done. First team all SEC quarterback. You have the receivers. You have the offensive line. You got the best player in the SEC on the defensive side of the football, and Harold Perkins. You got a defensive tackle coming back. Like, yeah, there's some questions and some spots that are uncertain, but I would say from top to bottom, LSU is we know who LSU is. I still can't tell you today, sitting down right now talking to you, T-Bob, what is Alabama going to be? Are they going to be ground and pound? Are they going to try and throw the football? Are the receivers that much improved from last year? Is the offensive line that much improved from last year? Who the hell is the quarterback going to be? Who's going to be getting after the quarterback? Who are going to be some of the defense? Like, I don't know. I just don't know. And for that fact alone, in my ballot, I had LSU one.
Yeah, I had LSU one too. I mean, you did say besides the fact that Nick Saban, but I mean, that is kind of the fact, right? You can't
Yeah.
really besides the fact there. One interesting
But
about the
Brian Kelly is not
T-Town.
that far behind him, is what I'm trying to say too.
Yeah, but people aren't going to accept that because we've seen Kelly and Saban go head to head. Granted, it was arguably on like an uneven playing field, but we've seen them go head to head, and we've seen how that worked out. Maybe except for last year. The T-Town thing is interesting because if you actually look at the series history, LSU tends to win more in Tuscaloosa than they do in Baton Rouge. But hey, it is what it is. You know, for all the talk of Alabama being doubted, the computers love him. Humans love him once again. Georgia picked to finish first in the East, Tennessee second, South Carolina third. That's right in line with basically what we had. Then Kentucky, Florida, Mizzou, and Vandy. In the West, Alabama, LSU, Texas A&M. Again, exactly what we had. And then Ole Miss, Arkansas, Auburn, and Mississippi State. I still feel Mississippi State's being disrespected here, given that they have Will Rogers and basically their entire offense returning 9-4. I was randomly on SC Network. The bowl game was on this morning from last year when they beat Illinois. Well, it ended up being 19-10. Should have been 13-10. Either way, we'll see on Mississippi State. I think they're being doubted a little.
I don't think it's anything
here.
to do with. I don't think it's anything to do with Mississippi State. I just think it's to do like what we talked about last week a little bit. Just how good that conference. There isn't a bad team on the West. There isn't. There isn't a bad team. Anyone could beat anyone, and I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Ole Miss somehow beat LSU or Alabama. I wouldn't be surprised if A&M beat LSU or Alabama. Like there are certain teams in that tier 2 that are good enough on any given day. Go look at our tiers that we made last week on Snaps. Any given day to beat someone in that tier 2, or even jump up and beat someone in that tier 1 ranking. So it's nothing to do with Mississippi State being bad. It's nothing to do with Mississippi State having a new head coach. It has nothing to do with Mississippi State breaking a new offense. It just is more to do with.
Well, no, I think it is. I think it is Mississippi State.
I think it is a little bit
head coach because like that's the only reason why Auburn's getting love over Mississippi State. Like they may be slightly more talented on a player by player basis.
Is a brand new coach.
But like it's because you know who Hugh Freeze is and you don't know who Zach Arnett is as a head coach. Yeah. So I think it is the ignorance factor in it because like you're saying, if everything else is even, you're going to go with the people that you know, and you know KJ Jefferson, you know these other guys.
Yeah. I think it's more the offense to do with it because we know the defense for Mississippi State's going to be good, though. I mean, he's still going to have his hands on that side of the football.
Yeah, the offense should be good, though. I mean, they returned Will Rogers and like all their starters, basically.
Yeah, but it's still a new offense, though. It is a completely different. It's going from English to, as I've tried to attempt the past 2 months and have failed miserably.
You have
it's going from English to Mandarin.
You haven't even.
I tried to. Yeah.
You tried for 2 days. You just gave yourself a lot of stolen Duolingo valor by saying 2 months. You gave it 2 days, which I knew you would because I've done the same thing. So I'm not even coming from a place of judgment. I'm coming from a place of understanding. I will say this. I had some interesting college football conversations over the weekend. A couple of what I would describe as okay sources. I don't think rock solid, but okay. And a little birdie told me Tyler Buckner is maybe in line to start. And if that is the case, that's a bad sign for Alabama. We'll talk about that a bit later, though, when we get to it in our quarterback competition conversation. And the Big 12, Texas, we've kind of gone over this. So I don't want to belabor the point. Yeah, what's going on? Oh, you're just holding up the number 1 for Texas. We've talked about before. Texas picked to win the Big 12, then Kansas State, then Oklahoma. Again, Aaron, what I would describe as a pretty solid source, but, you know, take it for what you will. I, after this weekend, am less of a believer in Sark than I have ever been. Texas may still win 10 games because they just may overwhelm people with their talent, but I feel better than ever about my Steve Sarkisian doubt and calling him a fraud. I'll just say that. Nothing else really jumps out to me from the Big 12 standings. It all looks pretty run of the mill here. Texas Tech at 4 is interesting because that's a team that, like, when Texas and Oklahoma leave, I believe that Texas Tech will be right there with TCU, Kansas State, and any of the other leftover teams as the favorites to win that conference.
Well, they get the money. I think that's the question now. They have the money to still support kids in the state of Texas that maybe don't want to go to Texas or Oklahoma, maybe don't want to because they're not a highly recruited kid or there's competition at their spot. I think Texas Tech will be obviously one of those schools that can financially in this NIL era, incentivize kids to go. They got great facilities. I think they're redoing their facilities. It's going to be absolutely incredible. And they run a great style of offense too.
I'm
they,
pretty
they've got
sure everybody that signs there gets 50K as
it's
well.
something
Every player.
outrageous. No, that's or is that SMU? It's just all these Texas. I think it's every Texas school you go to, you're going to
Here it
get
is. 20
some
Texas
sort
Tech.
of
This from last year, July 19th. This time last year, 25,000 up front for everybody on the roster. Bam. Immediately. The Texas football economy remains insane. I read a funny fact today because I do LSU morning show, obviously, or Louisiana, but it means a lot of LSU talk. And LSU now has 13 players committed to the class from the state of Louisiana. That's second most in the country to Texas Tech, who I think it's all 17 commits right now are from Texas. They literally have not gone anywhere else save for keeping it in the hometown, bringing people to Lubbock. So Texas Tech, a little frisky and only getting friskier, it would look like. Then we also had Pac-12 Media Day. Not doing multiple days. The scrub shit continues. And reportedly a TV deal's imminent, but we don't believe that because we've been hearing that for months. But in the end, the Trojans picked to finish first overall. Washington barely edging out Utah for second place. Utah coming in third, and then Oregon in fourth place. Wow. A lot to break down here. I'm a big Penix and Utah believer, and I get, they had the best record, Penix and Washington believer. I feel like I don't know. I know I'm a Whittingham. I'm just kind of a hater, not on him. I have inherent doubt with Utah that I could potentially get proven wrong on, but it's back once again. But I am a little shocked that the combination of the brand of Oregon, the acumen showed by Dan Lanning year one, and just how dominant Bo Nix was, I am a little bit surprised that Oregon didn't get more love. Only one first place vote for Oregon here.
I'm shocked. I think Oregon's going to be right there too. I think when we did our dark horses for the playoff run or national championship, a show we did a couple weeks ago, Oregon was one of my sleeper teams. So plus, I think it was 3,000 on a chance to make it to the playoffs. I think they have all the pieces. I think you have a second-year head coach who had, like you said, an incredible year one. You have probably the most experienced quarterback in college football. Is there a quarterback that has played more games than Bo Nix? He's played all those years at Oregon or at Auburn. Yeah. Now he had the year last year at Oregon, which was tremendous. You return a lot of the production on the outside of the football. To me, they are a huge sleeper team to watch out for. And I get that conference is better than it's been over the past, maybe 2 decades when it comes to just overall depth, especially depth at the top. But I do think Oregon's getting slept on a little bit, especially with knowing their schedule. I think USC has to go to Eugene to play. And as we know, that is not an easy place to play. So do not sleep on the Oregon Ducks this year. I think they could jump into that 2, if not 1, by it's all said and done. I don't know if we want to jump into this because we want the topics, but I get USC being 1, as they should be number 1 after the poll heading to the season.
Yeah. I do as well. And I understand there are USC doubters, but the bottom line is we always talk about it. You go as the way your head coach goes, and Lincoln Riley is that guy. I like DeBoer a lot as well from Washington. As you said, Whittingham does more with less than anybody, but USC has more. Right. So you can do more with less, but what if you have a coach that can do more with more? That's generally going to set you up better. How about this?
Well, and I don't like the conversation either of he didn't do it last year. Let's once again, it was year one. Whittingham had built a culture at Utah. He's been there. It's a hard-nosed team. Don't judge USC on their quote unquote, softness after year one. You can go back and say, well, he's never been a hard-nosed football coach, even back to Oklahoma. I do think that he's put a little bit more emphasis on that this offseason. You will see a more physical football team from USC this year.
Oregon, weird schedule, cool schedule. Week 2, they go to Lubbock to take on Texas Tech, who we were just talking about. But then they have a bit of a mixed bag. They have to go to Washington, to Utah, but they get SC and Oregon State at home. So bottom line, the Pac-12 looks as competitive as it's ever been in our entire lives. And, or at least since I've been remembering stuff. I think early 90s it might have been strong as well, but I'm very excited to see what ends up happening. So that is who the media believes will be the conference winners: Georgia, USC, and Texas, the big blue blood brands. We have ACC and Big Ten media days coming up later this week, so we'll update as appropriate. Speaking of SC, though, there's headlines running rampant right now, Aaron, that Caleb Williams guaranteed a playoff for the Trojans. I want to say this. After reading a little bit and a tweet pointing this out, that's a bit disingenuous. I don't know why everybody's writing guaranteed playoff in the headlines, because here's what the article actually said. He's kind of asked about last year's Pac-12 championship loss, saying it still burns, saying, quote, "I'm very determined. I haven't been in the college football playoff in my 2 years of playing. It's been tough. It bothers me because I play for championships. I don't play for anything else. So not being able to have the chance to be so close frustrates me. This year, it's going to be a good one." So again, nowhere in there does Caleb Williams guarantee a playoff, but he does let you know, look, this is going to be my last year of college football. Championships are all I care about. He would go on to talk about, like, winning the Heisman was nice. Winning a second one would be all right. But ultimately, again, he wants that championship. And so, yes, Caleb Williams and USC not shying away from the fact that it kind of is playoff or bust for them this season. And winning the Pac-12, it's kind of win the Pac-12 or bust, because that's going to be the first requisite to getting into the playoff.
Oh, I think for his legacy, I mean, look at Bryce Young. I know Bryce never won a national championship, but at least he put his team in a natty. He put his team in the playoffs along with winning the Heisman Trophy. So I think for him, yeah, he'll always be remembered as an elite quarterback. He'll be remembered as one of the best quarterbacks of the past decade. But what have the best quarterbacks of the past decade done? The majority of them have put their team into the playoffs. They put their team into a national championship. They've won a national championship, from Trevor Lawrence to Joe Burrow. Like I said, Bryce even made it to the championship. Obviously, wasn't able to push it through, but won a Heisman and did it. So that is, like you said, that is all that is left for Caleb Williams to cement himself as, I would say, if he goes out there this year, even just makes the playoffs, but if he wins a championship, I think that puts him on an even higher level, is back in New York, wins it or doesn't win it, and makes the playoffs. So two things. If he makes it to New York, which I think he's going to be on a great place to do that, because he'll
make it to New York. He'll make it.
He's the best. He is the best player in America. And I do think that they're going to be a because of the Pac-12 and how good they are, and because of how good I think they are, and I do think they'll win the Pac-12. I think they will be one of the Final Four teams when it's all said and done. He will go down as, I would say, the best quarterback of the past 20 years.
Just overall, all said and done, in all of college
just
football.
Overall. Like, you know, we did our list the other day of quarterbacks, and we ranked like the 1 through 10 of the 2000s. Was it the 2000s we did?
Yeah.
That whole ranking that came out. If Caleb wins or is back in New York,
he's got to win a natty if he wants that title. No, that won't be enough. He's got to win a natty. Not in a world where Joe Burrow and Cam Newton won titles.
If he wins the natty, then if Caleb wins the natty this year, regardless if he wins a Heisman or not, to me, he goes to number one, if not top two in that list.
Maybe so. What I would agree with is he may be the best prospect, right? In terms of like draft prospect. I don't know if fans will consider him the best. I mean, they definitely won't without a national championship. With one, it would become a bit more interesting. I still don't think USC is going to be able to win a natty,
those other guys had one. Tebow had multiple years, which is why I love where he's at. I have met one. Burrow had one elite year. Cam had one elite year. You're talking about putting back-to-back elite years together. To me, puts.
But you know what they say, level. Aaron? It don't mean a thing without a motherfucking ring. Okay, so bottom line. Also, how the fuck are you going to be sitting here talking about not having multiple elite years when you disrespected Kellen Moore and you disrespected my guy Eric Crouch, not putting them on your list? Get the hell out of here, dude. Two thoughts that popped in my head. First, one of these shows, we need to do a Pac-12 quarterback ranking, because there's a lot of good ones, and I would love to see how you break that down. Secondly, Lincoln Riley, one thing that's going to help USC, I think people think of Lincoln Riley as soft. Lincoln Riley is not scared. Here's a quote that I love. It really has nothing to do with nothing, except that he was asked about playing Notre Dame at media days. He says, quote, "That's one of the biggest rivalries in college football. We're going into a damn good league. We open up with LSU next year and then play the whole Big Ten. Are we getting rid of Notre Dame? Hell no. Find a way." In a day and age where you have rivalries breaking down, coaches running away, everybody trying to manipulate things to work out in their favor, Lincoln Riley wants to keep USC Notre Dame alive. I love that. Thank you, Lincoln. He also did acknowledge the reality that, look, man, we're going into a 12-team playoff. Like, you're going to have grace that you didn't have in the past. So I think USC wins the Pac-12 as well because, again, Lincoln Riley. Now let's move to the SEC. There's a really good article in The Athletic talking about the 6 quarterback battles that are going to be going down during this camp. And there's some interesting factoids in there. First off, the last 5 SEC champions were led by Heisman Trophy winners or finalists. Bryce Young, Stetson Bennett, Will Levis, Hendon Hooker, Anthony Richardson all went. Well, those aren't the finals, but they are actually all now going to the NFL. Kind of does raise some interesting questions about Georgia as the favorite, but Arkansas, LSU, Mississippi State, and South Carolina are really the only teams whose battles are fully settled. Let's start with Alabama. You have Ty Simpson, Tyler Buchner, and Jalen Milroe. And Simpson, you have the guy that I think is outside looking in the favorite, former 5-star quarterback. You would think he'd have the highest ceiling. And Buchner, you have a guy that the timing of it's not working in his favor, not being able to do spring ball, coming in late. His stats leave a lot to be desired. There's absolutely nothing to write home about. And then in Milroe, you have the most athletic guy who just has the least kind of traditional quarterback skill. Aaron, how do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, I just don't think Milroe can be trusted for a team like that. So I'm just not going to jump on that ship right now. But I do think Ty Simpson, talking with people and seeing what he did in the spring game, I know it wasn't super sexy. To me, is still has that, like you alluded to, that higher ceiling. That guy that we can still go out there, give him enough reps, is going to continue to mature, going to continue to get better. We kind of know what Tyler Buchner is. And you can't tell me as an Alabama fan, you go back and watch last season and you say, oh, I feel really good about that guy being our starting quarterback. So I would say it's between those two at the end of the day, and the best man will end up getting the job. I anticipate it being Simpson because I think he's a better quarterback. Yeah, he's a little bit greener. Yes, he hasn't played as much as obviously as the other guys, but the potential's there. I just think it's going to be a short leash. I think you get into week 2, and all of a sudden, if he does play bad versus Texas, and they end up losing that game in Tuscaloosa, then all of a sudden, I think Buchner could become that guy. That's what you brought him in for. If these guys end up proving that they're not ready, that the moment is too big, we brought in a guy who has experience in the offense and a guy that has played football that we know we can kind of plug in and let him go out there and at least make us competitive, and maybe give Ty Simpson another season to see what we can do next year. But you still need, at the end of the day, if you want to win a championship, you need a really good quarterback. That's just the name of the game today. Milroe's not there. I don't think Buchner is a really, really good quarterback. I think Ty is the best guy on that roster. It's just going to be, like I said, how long do they give him to kind of prove it?
Well, yeah, see, and again, I heard a interesting rumor that I would describe as okay source that right now the season started that Buchner would actually be the guy. But it's interesting to be talking about Buchner being like, having a ton of experience, because he kind of doesn't. Like, yeah, he played in 10 games as a freshman, but he only attempted 35 passes, completed 21 of them, so that's 60%, under 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 picks. Last year, played in just 3 games before getting hurt, but in those 3 games, 55% completion, 650 yards, 3 touchdowns, 5 picks. So, like, you haven't seen anything good out of Buchner. This again, if this shows you why Nick Saban is so impressive, that this could be their quarterback room, and that would be the expectation level would still be win the West in what is easily the best half of the conference, of any conference in all of college football. As you said, all 7 teams ranked in the top 30 of the Bill Connolly S&P Plus. Let's move on to Alabama's arch rival, Auburn, as they've got a couple of different guys in the mix. One of them is, of course, Robbie Ashford, who's the incumbent, super athletic. Not sure how good of a quarterback he is. Again, his stats last year through the air really struggled. Now, I don't know, Brian Harsin not exactly put him in a position to succeed, but sub 50% completion, just 1,600 yards, 7 touchdowns, 7 picks. And then you have Peyton Thorne, who, similar to Tyler Buchner, comes in after spring but he does have stats to fall back on. Like everything we just said about Buckner, like how people think about Buckner, that you're bringing in the experienced guy who's done this or that. Buckner hasn't really done that. Peyton Thorne has. I mean, 2 years ago, he was the quarterback of a playoff team, or excuse me, borderline playoff team, threw for 3,200 yards, 27 touchdowns, 10 picks. Like, he had a very solid year. And Hugh Freeze, talking about Peyton Thorne, said, quote, "I think what he adds to the room right now is incredible leadership. One of the first things he did was come in and say, 'Coach, is there any way someone can give me a sheet of paper that has a picture of everyone that works in this building? I want to learn everyone's name.'" That's the type of leader he is. So I think it would take massive improvement from Ashford to win this job. That said, Aaron, I think Thorne starts, and I think Robbie Ashford is using packages. I think you have a bit of a 2-quarterback system this year in Auburn.
I wouldn't close the door necessarily on Robbie Ashford. I think here's enough talent there that say Payne doesn't pick up the offense fast enough. Let's not forget, Robbie's at least been in the offense for those 15 practices in spring. I wish it would have not have poured so we could have kind of seen what he looks like as a quarterback. I need to see Payne run the offense before I crown him starting quarterback. Do I think he's going to do it? Yeah, I think Payne Thorne is going to be the quarterback at the end of the day. If things don't go well, though, if the offense is stagnant, I think you could see a head coach who has worked with quarterbacks that are athletic and more of that mold just say, you know what, screw it. We're going to put the ball in our best athlete's hands, and we're going to find a way to run an offense around him. So I think Payne Thorne, just like we talked about with Alabama's situation, I think he needs to have a hot start to the season, play extremely well through the first 3 or 4 games to kind of put that quarterback battle to sleep. Because if he doesn't, like I said, the coach at the end of the day is going to say, you know what, this guy runs a 4.4, 4.3. He's fast as hell. We're still trying to figure out the skill around him. Let's just give him the ball and let him see if we can go win some football games with his legs as he continues to mature as a passer. So I'm not going to just say right now that you're only going to see Robbie Ashford in third and short situations or red zone situations this season. I do think at some point this season, he may be called upon to be a starting quarterback.
I think you'll run a more old school 2-quarterback system. I mean, I don't think it's just going to be packages. Like, I think for Jalen Miller at Alabama, maybe you develop like sub packages type situations. Yep. Like, I think you're going to see more like, I don't know, like
you get every 4 series,
like Chris Leak Tebow or maybe a Jarrett Lee Jordan Jefferson, something I was very familiar with back in the day. Speaking of Chris Leak and Tebow, Florida has a quarterback competition, but it may be the least exciting of the bunch. I think it's very representative of how Florida feels as a whole this year. You got Graham Mertz, who, feels like the heavy favorite here. Obviously, he started every game 3 years in a row at Wisconsin. So by far the most experience. And the other guys, you got a redshirt freshman and Max Brown. Don't really expect anything there. And then you got Jack Miller, who transfers from Ohio State. It's his second year under Napier. He started the Las Vegas Bowl. Obviously, that was a complete disaster. But Billy Napier, as much as I struggle to believe this, Billy Napier did say he's having, quote, an incredible offseason. This feels like Graham Mertz, which feels, like I said, about as unexciting as this Florida team does.
Yeah, Florida this season is just, I mean, they were like probably the least talked about team last year in Nashville, would you say? Like, of all the teams that we talked about, Florida was just kind of barely mentioned the entire week. So I would say you go with Graham. I mean, he transferred there for a reason. I think he's shown us glimpses of really good quarterback play. And I think for Florida this year is just survival mode. I think this is a survive, get through the season, and which quarterback can essentially lead us to a hopefully over 500 season. I don't think any guy right now you're like, oh, we're going to go win the East. Oh, we're going to go win 9-10 games. Like, I'm sure there's crazy Florida fans who think that, but who can just steer the ship in a way that's not, we're 4-8.
So I don't think again,
go ahead. I think Graham at least gives you a chance to be competitive in certain games to get you as close to 500 as possible. I don't think if you're Billy, you could just hand the ball over to someone who really hasn't played a lot of football and just say, you know what, screw it. Let's just see if we, see what happens. I think for Florida and the momentum that they're getting on the recruiting trail, the last thing you can afford is a losing season, because you may start seeing some of those guys jump off that recruiting ship.
Sounds fucking awful. Can Graham Mertz get us to 6-6? That is a brutal place to be if you're an SEC fan. You have Mizzou, who started Brady Cook all of last season as sophomore, and he was pretty good. I mean, he accounted for 20 touchdowns, 3,200 total yards if you add in the passing and rushing, but the door maybe cracked open a little bit when he misses spring ball due to labrum surgery. You get a transfer from Miami and Jake Garcia. You get a transfer from the community college at Dylan Label. I don't know much about those guys, to be honest. And then you have a 4-star redshirt freshman, Sam Horn, who, I mean, look, 4-star quarterback is a big deal for Mizzou. So I think Brady Cook is the answer, but Drink has not committed to him. They're going to have this competition through camp. The only thing about here is, like, there's a lot of unknown for me. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know much about Garcia Label or Horn beyond what I just told you. So it's probably Brady Cook, but one of these guys does have the potential to surprise during camp.
Yeah, I would say if either one of them would be Garcia. A lot of hype from him coming from Miami. He had moments there. Brady Cook has to become a better passer. And for him, unfortunately, he missed spring. So he didn't really get to demonstrate that. I mean, he's a guy that last year got better as the season went on. I thought gained some confidence in himself. But most of the time, it was just him running. It was just him pulling the ball down and just being an elite athlete. At the end of the day, like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, once again, going back to Auburn, when you maybe struggle with guys around you, at the end of the day, having an athletic quarterback is not the worst thing in the world. Like, for Missouri, you lost your best receiver. Lovett went to Georgia. You hope Luther Burden can take a massive step in his second year. They're going to move him from outside to inside, hopefully get him more involved in the offense. But it's not like you're loaded with all these elite receivers on the outside. So for Drink and for the new offense, the new offensive coordinator, you may have to rely on a quarterback that is more athletic to be able to move the ball, to be able to, third and long situation, a defense drops back into coverage, he pulls it down and runs and gets his first down with his legs, which we saw him do over and over and over again last year. So I think the difference is Alabama has good receivers, not elite, but good. So you do want a quarterback that can throw the ball to get those guys the ball in space. Missouri doesn't have those elite receivers. Once again, Luther still needs to show us that he deserves that number one guy coming out of high school a year ago. I would still lean towards a guy at quarterback who is athletic, that can run the football, which I'm with you, screams more to me Brady Cook than anyone else on that roster.
Yeah, what did Luther end up doing last year? Yeah, he had 6 touchdowns, but left a bit to be desired overall. All right, then you got Ole Miss. Jaxson Dart, and this is probably, I would say, we'll get to Georgia. I think it's between Georgia and Ole Miss for probably the best overall rooms for this conversation. We got Jaxson Dart, who well, no. I mean,
I get
quarterback, like, not quarterback rooms overall, but in terms of, like, we're not exactly sure who has the best options. You got Jaxson Dart, who we feel like is the guy most likely. He's still gonna have to get across the finish line in camp. But I mean, the comments that Lane Kiffin's kind of been given in the offseason, reports coming out of spring, is that it's probably Jaxson Dart. But you do have Spencer Sanders, guy who's put up crazy stats at Oklahoma State at times, a lot of experience, fifth-year senior. Makes me think Mike Gundy must really suck to play for that he would leave. And I guess he thought he was going to start, but like we've talked about, he's probably not. And then you have Walker Howard, one of the best quarterback recruits to ever come out of Louisiana. And Walker Howard went for it. He may be great one day, but he may also have to wait a while. And what's kind of interesting, Walker Howard leaving LSU, going to Ole Miss, one of the reasons why is because LSU brought in Jaden Daniels, right? Another transfer who ends up being the starter for 2 years. If we learned anything about Lane this offseason, that's Walker's going to have to probably deal with transfers every single year, as they're always going to be trying to improve in that position. But I mean, we've talked about it, Aaron. This is probably Jaxson Dart.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Jaxson today. I think Spencer Sanders is going to be the full of the offseason, going to a place where you had to compete with the quarterback who actually statistically had a better season than you did, and he's the reigning starting quarterback. Like, what are we doing? Of all the free moves you can make
Mike Gundy,
to enjoy your last year of being a starting quarterback? One, you leave a Power 5 program where you are loved, have had success, to go to another place, once again, where the quarterback had better stats than you, was a young quarterback who has a ton of potential. So hats off to Lane Kiffin for the ultimate sales job to get both those quarterbacks there, because I thought Jaxson Dart was good last year. I think Jaxson Dart has the ability to be one of the best quarterbacks in this league when it's all said and done by the end of the season. I think he's athletic, had 700 yards rushing last year. Can mix all the arm angles. I think has really good arm strength. I just think he's a hell of an athlete, and I think he's going to continue to get better and better and better. And I think Lane sees that. I think Lane hinted that in the spring. Lane
Yeah.
hinted that a little bit last week when I talked to him. So I do. I think this is Jackson Dart's job, and Walker Howard's going to look like a fool, and so is Spencer Sanders when it's all said and done.
If nothing else, if I was an Ole Miss fan, I would be pretty fired up because you at least have you have a really good room. You have insurance.
Yeah.
Right. If Dart did go down, it's not a disaster. You can handle it. You can still kind of reach your team's potential. And then you even feel like bright about your future in Howard, who's already now used his transfer and have to have a grad transfer if he wanted to leave again. And then we get to Georgia. Aaron, you may be biased in this situation, but would you say that Georgia has the best top to bottom room?
No, I would still say LSU does.
I'm sorry. No, I mean in this group of six.
No, I would go Ole Miss. I would go Ole Miss in this one. I mean, because you have more starting. I would say, because you head into the season with way more starts than anyone else.
You
have a guy who started the entire season last year for Ole Miss, and you have a 2-year, maybe 3-year starter in Spencer Sanders. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on that one, but a guy who's played a lot of football at a high level. So I would say Ole Miss for the
experience, but yes. I do feel like Georgia probably has the highest rated guys top to bottom in Vandergrift, Stockton, and Beck. I'm just assuming these are all 4 and 5 stars.
They are all 4 and 5 star guys. Maybe when it's all said and done, but I would still, heading into the season, I would have more comfort in Ole Miss's quarterback room if I'm an outsider. Like, I'm biased. I've seen the practices. I've been in Athens. I know what Carson's going to be about. So, it's hard for me to really judge, but if I'm an outsider looking in for both schools, I would probably say I feel more comfortable saying that Ole Miss is in a better spot quarterback wise than Georgia is quarterback wise because of the returning starts on that roster.
Yeah, it looks like Spencer Sanders has started 4 years, by the way. So a lot of football for Spencer Sanders in up there in Oklahoma State. As far as Georgia goes, Carson Beck, Brock Vandegrift, Gunnar Stockton. If you listen to Snaps, you already know Aaron thinks it's Carson Beck to the point where he wants to put a Heisman bet on him, which, again, like I said earlier, last 5 years, everybody who's won the conference had the winner or the finalist when it comes to New York. So has anything changed there? Have you been getting any rumors lately to change your take that Carson Beck will be the guy?
That's Carson. It's okay. Carson. I don't think Kirby's going to make this a competition. Like, the other guys will get reps every now and then with the ones, but that's just the way that Kirby organizes his practices and just the moving guys around. But I don't think there's ever going to be a threat of Carson losing his job unless he just goes out there and is just god awful. Like, I think this is all the players know it. I think even Brock Vandegrift knows it. Carson knows it. The coaches know it. Carson Beck is our guy this year, and we're going to make sure that he is ultimately prepared to go out there and start game one.
So that's it. Those are 6 quarterback battles, kind of some predictions on how we expect them to play out, maybe who's going to be the best out of that group. Speaking of quarterback, Aaron, I've watched 3 episodes now of the Netflix show, and I got to say it's pretty good. I don't think it's great, but it is pretty good. Like, I would recommend it. But my biggest takeaway is I like Kirk Cousins, which I never expected.
I do too.
I like Kirk Cousins. He's too good. He's too good of a guy. And to me, he comes off as just very relatable. Like, he's very honest about how he deals with insecurity. And you see him talking to team psychologists, and he talks about the fear of failure, and he's very aware of how he's thought of and how he's kind of made fun of. And he just comes off as terribly human. I mean, yes, nerdy. Absolutely. Absolutely. Does his wife dress him horribly? Yes. But at the end, but he's not even, nerds, I guess, are just obsessed with whatever they're obsessed with, right? You can be nerdy about anything. He's not nerdy about what I'm nerdy about. He's been nerdy about football, but he's just like, I don't know it. Yeah. He's just, how do you come out of that and be like, I fucking hate Kirk Cousins, so I just can't do it anymore. No, so I'm officially a Kirk O'Chains fan, which I would not have expected coming in.
No, he doesn't resist it. He knows who he is. I think he is. Like you said, he did. I think it was the first episode where he was speaking to the team psychologist. So there are moments of insecurity, But I would say overall, he's very secure with who he is. Like, he's not fake. I would say that, like, he is who he is, and he knows he's a little dorky, a little goofy, a little nerdy, whatever word you want to say, and he just kind of rolls with the punches and just says, love me for who I am. So, no, I do I do wonder, because I did enjoy obviously the golf one. I enjoyed the Formula One. Is it because we've played the game and we kind of know it, that maybe we don't enjoy it as much as the other ones?
I feel like
I learned so much from the other ones.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably part of it, but I think it is a little more manicured. I think the NFL had a little bit of a hand. It's a little light on some of the game day stuff, Yeah. And
Patrick, they showed the kind of the behind the scenes with Patrick from who were they playing where he was getting back and forth with the Raiders?
Max Crosby. Yeah.
That was I didn't really realize that
well.
was going on. Yeah, that was phenomenal.
But I would say that, like, it just does feel, maybe compared to what I've seen out of Drive to Survive and Full Swing, it just feels a little more vanilla than those shows. But I would still recommend it, dude. And even my wife watched it on her own on Saturday night. I was like, what? Other thoughts from the weekend: Slam Ball is not that tight. I have fond memories of Slam Ball growing up. I tried to watch it as I did watch it as a kid. I loved it. And I tried to watch it this weekend, and I got bored like 5 or 6 minutes in. Sometimes things just need to stay dead. Maybe Slam Ball proves me wrong, but I kind of doubt it. Shout out Barbenheimer. Aaron, how about this? Barbie and Oppenheimer become the first movies ever to both gross at least $80 million in their opening weekend. 150 for Barbie, 80 for Oppie. Shout out Greta Gerwig, 39-year-old female director of Barbie, now the largest opening weekend for a female director ever. And then PG told me before the show that she's married to Noah Baumbach, who also wrote the movie. I mean, just an absolute power couple, power move for Margot Robbie as well. I mean, just anybody involved with Barbie, massive winners. How about this? Box office as a whole, 4th biggest weekend in box office history. Movies dangerously close to being back. Very ironically, at a time when all the writers and actors are on strike.
Rough time.
I don't know what the takeaway is from that, but I do find that kind of funny that those
I gotta find some time to go watch one of those movies. Going Oppenheimer first.
Me too.
Barbie second. Yes.
I want to watch both, but I got to watch Oppenheimer in like the highest quality theater that I can. And plus, it seems like a lot of people think that Oppenheimer drags. I had like a couple of people being like, I'm mad they didn't show Hiroshima, which I'm like, okay, guy, that's a little extreme. I don't need to see that in like grisly high detail, but I love history. And so just the source material of Oppenheimer really intrigues me. And then finally, Aaron, congratulations to us. We are now members of X.com. You can follow me at X.com/T-Bob53. As wait, have you not noticed this?
No,
you somehow avoided Elon Musk over the weekend changed Twitter to X.com and wants it to become one of the biggest banking platforms in the world. Go on your Twitter right now and see that it is now X. You go to X.com and see that it reroutes you to Twitter. So, which apparently is what Elon originally wanted to name PayPal back in the day. So it's all come full circle for Mr. Musk, which also had the unintended effect of X videos trending, because of course it did. Using the letter X is absurd when 90% of the internet is made up of porn. But hey, look at us. Here we are, just a couple of X.com boys.
Love it. Let's get toasty.
I don't overdo it at the beginning of the show. I'm very excited for this Gran Turismo trailer, which we're about to live react to. But, oh, God. Check it out.
You are in this race. Get in the fight.
Yes, sir.
What are we going to do? What are we going to do?
Oh, shut up! I'm not missing my race.
Oh, I'm going to puke.
Don't pick up my dad's car.
Yes, we're not going to jail!
Oh, crap.
Listen, son. You think you're gonna play a stupid video game about cars and you're gonna become a race car driver?
All I ever wanted to do is be a racer. I'm doing it.
The 10 of you are the best.
Okay,
Gran Turismo players in the
Orlando
world.
Blue.
Now is your chance to race real cars,
This is insane.
It's not going to work. The guys who race are elite athletes. Your kids are scrawny little gamer kids.
That's where you come in.
So you think you can do the impossible. I'm here to prove that you can't.
You get tired, you get sloppy, you get hurt, and you lose races! You puked on my lawn.
I can't believe this is real.
I know what I'm doing. I'm not afraid. I've raced this track 1,000 times in the game. Let me drive it my way.
David Harbour.
That was actually pretty great.
We have a newcomer this year. His presence is shaking the foundation of the sport.
It's just the major leagues.
The other drivers, your pit crew are going to hate you.
What? Much easier with a joystick, isn't it?
I can't see anything!
I'm not sure if I can do this.
Most people can't. I got a feeling you're not
That's
most
unreal.
people.
If I lose more than just a race. So I'm not gonna quit.
You've got to prove to everyone that you belong.
You've raced it, what, like 1,000 times? Now you just got to do it in real life.
Gran Turismo, based on a true story.
I can't believe this is based on a real damn story. Like, you go from playing a video game to jumping in. It'd be like some guy playing Madden saying, okay, I know how to read coverages. Go put me in at quarterback and let me go out there and execute at a high level.
I
Like,
love it.
These cars are going so fast and
Yeah, but you can sim, but bro, you can sim racing, like you can sim like that in terms of like
that,
crossover. In terms of crossover, like actual racing simulators are pretty damn good.
yeah, but
That's
there's a sense
story.
of like life and death though. Like when you watch real racers, especially watching like the Netflix series Drive to Survive, like you have to have a sense of I could almost die today, but I have to push this car to the
See,
limit in order to win.
I knew it,
Like
dude.
if I'm in a council, I'm not there's no sense of like me dying. It's like there has to be that crazy mentality of putting a car at that level of speed, and all of a sudden a blink of an eye, like, yeah, you may lose the game. Well, shit, you may lose your life.
Wait, dude, you literally are David Harbour. The entire trailer, I was thinking about how you are David Harbour, and now that's the line that he used twice in the trailer.
I know.
You know, the video game you reset, in real life you die. But
Yeah.
it's true. Look, this is every video game nerd's dream. And the craziest part, I mean, I really cannot believe that this is an actual real story. I don't think I knew about Yan before this. It's unbelievable. It looks awesome, dude. It looks way better than I thought. Coming out August 4th.
Yeah.
Great cast. Haven't seen Orlando Bloom in a minute. Love David Harbour from Stranger Things and everything else. And it's directed, Aaron, by one of my favorite directors ever, Neil Blomkamp. District 9, top 5 movie to me. I am now very excited to see this thing. Who knows? Maybe one day I can really become a night elf druid who can shapeshift into bears and leopards and other thing. I mean, if Yan can do it, I'm sure I could probably do it, man. Gran Turismo
100%.
exclusively in theaters, August 11th. Get your tickets now. Rated PG-13. I can't wait. That'll do it for today's show. This little weekend thoughts.